All consciousness, at least human consciousness, is identical because it doesn't include personality, memory, intellectual ability, etc. Consciousness consists only of the pure awareness behind those things. For this reason, we are all reincarnations of each other, irrespective of linear time. Okay, well, that's definitely a spicy take. I don't know if I agree with the reincarnation bit, but there is something really important to be said about the nature of what consciousness is. I just had Arnica Harris on my podcast and we talked about the nature of consciousness, and she's of the view that consciousness might be fundamental. That is to say that the stuff that makes up the universe most fundamentally is consciousness.
Watch as popular YouTube atheist Alex O'Connor explores the idea that consciousness is fundamental, as I claim in this channel. I claim that that's the presence of God. He doesn't, but he's been exploring the idea of God for a while, and it seems like consciousness being fundamental might be the thing that convinces him.
Whatever that isolated thing itself is, you take away the memory, you take away the ability to experience emotion, you take away the ability to use reason, and you leave just the thing which makes them possible, that is, conscious experience, and that alone, it seems to me a lot more plausible to say that something like that is foundational to the universe. The reason why it sounds so wacky and weird to say consciousness is fundamental is because we associate consciousness with these higher order intellectual activities that the brain does. But those aren't the same thing as consciousness. Those are just some of the things that consciousness can do. So I'm made up of consciousness, and the microphone is made up of consciousness too. But just like how the Empire State Building and a rock are ultimately made up of the same thing, matter, but one of them has much more complicated stuff going on. It's got like elevators, it's got windows, it's got standing desks, and it's got cash registers and all kinds of stuff. That's not to say that it's a categorically different thing. It's not made out of a different kind of material. It's just more complicated. And all of those cool things like windows and cash registers are just complicated expressions of the same fundamental thing, matter. The panpsychist views consciousness in the same way. Consciousness is fundamental, and it does make up this microphone, but the sheer complexity with which consciousness is arranged in something like a brain means that I can do lots of really cool extra stuff like memory and emotion, and that's the kind of analogical equivalent of the cash register and the window and the elevators. It's the same material, it's just organized in a more complicated manner. So I think the commenter is quite right to point out that consciousness is not the same thing as personality or memory or intellectual ability. Instead, consciousness is just the awareness that allows those things to occur, that sits behind those things. I'm not sure that it means that we are all reincarnations of each other, irrespective of linear time. I'm not even really sure what that means, but it certainly does revolutionize the way that we understand what consciousness is, what it can do, and what's required for it. So if consciousness itself, that is separate from all of the complicated things that it can sometimes do, like memory or like emotions, but just the awareness itself, if that actually doesn't require complexity, then not only do we need to rethink what it is that makes our brains so special, but also just how plausible it might be to say that consciousness is more foundational than we might originally have thought.
To clarify this idea that reincarnation is possible through this perspective, it is, but it's not reincarnation, because reincarnation is the idea that a soul persists after death as if it were an independent consciousness, and then that soul embodies another material being. It's not exactly that. It's not that we have identical consciousnesses. It's that there's one consciousness, and that consciousness is shared. It never goes away. It's never annihilated. All things that occur within consciousness, perceived by consciousness as a localized perspective. May it be an animal or human being, or who knows, maybe even plants or minds beyond, the dimensions that we can interface with. But anyway, I think that this does a good job at demonstrating that consciousness is fundamental. If you like what I said, hit me up in the comments. If you disagree, again, hit me up in the comments, and I appreciate the time.